Well, hi all, and welcome to Operational Intelligence, elevating your environment with Datadog and Rackspace Technology. Now, today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Rackspace, featuring Datadog and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am absolutely thrilled to be your moderator for this webinar because I am so excited to explore this idea of elevating your environment through that operational intelligence. There's a lot of exciting things that we're going to get to talk about today. And today we're in for an extra special treat because our wonderful expert speakers here with us from Rackspace and Datadog are going to join in an engaging roundtable conversation. We've got some polls for all of you. We want to get your stories, your perspectives involved in the discussion today. Now there's a demo planned a little bit later on, and we've got lots of time for Q&A set aside at the end. So it's going to get interactive. It's going to get involved, and I want you all to get ready. Shake out your fingers right now. Give a little shake. Get ready to get involved and join in this conversation today. I have a few housekeeping things that I need to zip through before we get ourselves on the road here. So let's get rolling. Now, the very first thing that I want to do is draw your attention on over to the questions section of your webinar console. Now, I was just mentioning how interactive and involved we want the conversation today to be, and we mean that. It is so exciting when we get this opportunity to interact with these expert presenters. So please take advantage of that and get all those questions in, comments, feedback, ideas, whatever you've got rolling around in your head. We want to hear from you. Now, we're going to give it a little bit of a test run to make sure everybody's up and ready and rocking today. So go over to that questions tab and say hi, say hello, send a little wave out to the community. Make sure that that's working for you today. I see lots of highs and hellos coming in from Kansas, from Arkansas, from Texas, from Atlanta. All right, we got the crew. Everyone's in warm, sunshiny places. I am not, so I'm jealous of all of you. All right, we'll keep those highs and hellos coming in because we're going to be keeping an eye on that today. Now, in the questions window, that is also the best place to let us know if you do have any technical issues. Knock on wood, as always. But hey, if those tech gremlins get a hold of you today, the very first thing you're going to try is a browser refresh. If that browser refresh doesn't work, if you do that hard refresh and that's not working for you, no problem. Shoot us a message in the questions window there, and the Actual Tech Media crew will be there to help you out. All right, the last thing that I want to point out on your guided tour of your audience console today, that's the handouts tab. Go check out some really cool resources and follow-ups. You can sign up for a free trial. There's great takeaways. I know that we're going to jump right into our content right away, so don't go down the rabbit hole just yet. Just open those tabs, download those, hold on to them, set them aside, because you're going to want to come back to all of those resources after we wrap up our conversation today. So get that ready to go. Now, if your eyes went to that little $250 icon down at the bottom of the slide there, I get it. That's an eye-catchy little icon. We do have a $250 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing we will be giving away at the end of our webinar. So stay tuned for that. Of course, you do need to be here in live attendance at the webinar, but where else would you want to be today than here with all of us? And if your questions, or you have any questions about the full terms and conditions for those prizes, head on over to the handouts tab that we were just chatting about, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you will find the full T's and C's linked for you there. All right, I see 38 degrees and sunny in San Antonio, Texas. Oh, Alan, that sounds just lovely. I would love to be in that 38 degree weather. Canada. All right. So my friends, now I have one more fun way for you to win a prize today. Today on the webinar, we have a $50 Amazon gift card that's going to go to the best question asked. So challenge extended to everyone out there, the best question asked. And we are going to review all the questions that are asked after we wrap up. So even if we don't get to your question in our Q&A session today, you are still entered to win. So make sure you get those questions in, because A, you get gold stars and brownie points from me. B, it brings up the whole awesomeness of the webinar and makes the discussion that much more exciting. And C, you could win a $50 Amazon gift card. So questions rolling in. All right, my friends. Well, I see a hello from frigid Wisconsin. Yes, Justin, I get it. Wisconsin. All right. Well, now this is how you're gonna warm up. This is how you warm up. You're gonna stay inside and you're gonna answer great questions. You're gonna ask great questions. And we have a question now for all of you. What we're wondering is, which organizational journey are you currently undertaking that has piqued your interest in observability tools like Datadog? So, okay, where are you at in your organization? What is it that made you think, this is a webinar that I want to attend today? This is a conversation that I want to be a part of. This is a great question here. And I'm so excited that this is where we're kind of starting our discussion out, because what we're curious about, and this is multi-select, by the way, so you can select as many answers as you want. It could be all of them. Every single one of these could have been the reason that you wanted to come in, although that's a lot of things. So I hope you don't have that much on your plate right now. But what was it that made you think, this is something I need to learn more about? I need to learn a little bit more about observability to help me with my cloud infrastructure modernization, or we're really interested in migrating and modernizing apps and data. What is it that made you want to come in today? So click on that poll. Now, here's the thing. We're not going to get into the results right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go through our discussion. We'll get our speakers out here in just a second. They're waiting in the wings. They're ready to get into all this awesome content we've got for you today. We're going to bring them out and we're going to get into the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, we're going to dig in and explore these results a little bit further. So right now, you're just clicking on the poll. I promise no one's name or organization will show up, so don't worry about that. But you're going to click on this poll here. And then in just a little bit, once we get through our conversation with our speakers and we're getting into our Q&A, we'll get a chance to dig in a little bit deeper into some of these concerns or curiosity points or opportunities in your organization. So please do click on this poll right now, because this is really going to help us get into our in-depth conversation, really personalize that Q&A for all of you later on. So you guys click on that. And while you're doing that, Vinay wants to know if I said brownies. I said brownie points, Vinay. I get it. Now I want a brownie. I'm with you, my friend. All right. Well, in just a second here, I'm going to bring our speakers out, but I'm just giving you all another quick second to make sure that you've clicked on the poll here, because we want to make sure that we're able to tailor this conversation to all of you. So again, multi-select, click on anything that applies to what brought you in today, what you're most excited to talk about today, besides brownies, because now Jennifer wants to talk about brownies too. I'm with you guys. I know. I keep talking about brownies. I don't have brownies for anyone. I have something better though. I have observability. Is that on the scale? All right. Well, we'll see. I'll ask you all at the end if we were better than brownies. That's our goal. To be equal to or greater than brownies is our goal for the day. All right, well, let's get this rolling, because I think it's time to kick things off, and I know our speakers are eager to jump in. Speaking of speakers, let me introduce you to our awesome crew, the all-star lineup that we have here with us today, and this is going to be such a fun conversation. As I said, look at our awesome crew here. So we are going to be chatting with Edward Kerr, Product Director at Rackspace. We've got Rick Hernandez, Senior Systems Architect, also at Rackspace, and George Morgan, Datadog Solution Architect at Rackspace. Like I said, absolute all-star crew here with us today. All right, so without any further ado, let's jump right in, and then we'll get this conversation rolling. I'm going to hand things off to you all. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Rick. Happy to be here with everybody.
Hello, I'm George. I'm happy to be here as well.
And my name's Ed, and today I'm going to walk you through our presentation around operational intelligence, showing you exactly how you can elevate your environments with the partnership of Datadog and Rackspace Technology. With that said, before we get into the meat of the presentation, I actually want to walk you through our agenda and outline the key things that you should walk away with understanding after this. First things first, we're going to talk about what is observability. Then we're going to put Datadog and Rackspace within the context of your journey. Then we're going to look at the Datadog and Rackspace relationship overall and help you understand why we even matter together. Then we're going to give you a Datadog demo hosted by George, our partner over at Datadog. And then we're going to talk about, from a Rackspace lens, what exactly observability is for us and how we overcome, I should say, the challenges that presents when we're operating at scale. Then we'll take those lessons and we'll understand, how does Rackspace now solve those challenges for ourselves, and how does that shade the way we approach our customers when we're solving those problems for them. With that said, let's talk about what is observability. You see, there are two kind of core concepts in the market: monitoring and observability. And some might think they're the same, but the reality is they're very different. And one is just understanding that there is something wrong, which is a monitor. It's a bunch of sirens that says, oh my goodness, like there's a thing that just happened. But observability is like, hey, not only do we know that thing just happened, but here's some insights into understanding exactly why that thing happened and what we need to do about it, giving you an opportunity to step in and automate, remediate, and ultimately solve your problem much more quickly than you would have otherwise been able to had you just gotten the alarm bells. Now, with all of that said, it's important to understand that observability is a tool in your toolkit, and its goal is to help you along some particular journey. Now, you saw earlier on in the presentation a poll that came up where we asked you what are some of the journeys that caused you to think about Datadog in your day-to-day lives. Well, Rackspace is going to give you one of our journeys that we outline for our customers and show you exactly where Datadog fits into that picture. The one you have on your screen now is our migrate and modernize. And if you look on the far left, it starts with an advise phase. And when you think about where observability can come into play, well, we can do things like health checks and cost optimization. We can help you assess and understand your existing systems by monitoring them through Datadog. Then when we go into the transformation phase, where we're actually like rehosting, replatforming, and doing all these other things, we can implement advanced tagging strategies. We can implement the solution itself. We can help observe the migration and make sure that it's moving seamlessly. All of these things are possible when you have the right tool in place. And then when you shift over to the manage and optimize phase, that's what we're all most familiar with. That's where you've got Datadog in your environment. You're looking at things, making sure that if things go wrong, you're able to respond and remediate. And it's all what we're most familiar with. But what's really important is to understand that at every single phase of these journeys, there is a place that you should be considering, what is my observability strategy? Not only should we be talking about what is our observability strategy, but I should be explaining to you why Rackspace makes sense with Datadog. So we're going to move over to the next slide where I talk to you about the Rackspace and Datadog partnership. You see, Rackspace and Datadog together bring a unique solution to the market. We are a top-tier gold partner with Datadog globally. We are a systems integrator and professional services organization with skills around observability in general and specifically around Datadog. We are a resale partner and a managed services provider. We have over 50 plus Datadog clients globally. But that's not what makes us special, because there are probably a dozen of those. Not dozen, there's probably dozens of those, right? What makes us really special is that we can take that observability, that insight into customer environments, and then we can marry it with the myriad of certifications, the over 7,000 global employees that we have, giving them insights into the over 120,000 clients that we have, and then use tools like Datadog to give our customers insights and accelerate the remediation of their problems. Now, when Rick talks to you a little bit later about the unique perspective that we have, this slide kind of sets that up, because the reality is what we bring as an MSP, the unique perspective we have, is the fact that we have to operate at scale. And when you operate a solution like Datadog at scale, you start to understand things about it because you're stress testing different parts of it. You're trying to look at things at a large scale. And that really does require a really robust set of tools. And so this slide right here walks you through exactly what that means. And again, across 120 different countries, 40 different global data centers, and certifications across the VMware, public cloud, private cloud, and open source ecosystems. Now, that means nothing if we're not actually putting it to work for a particular customer. So right now, I'm going to walk you through Provenir, our case study, where Provenir came to us with a desire to gain insights and visibility into the microservices and infrastructure with the goal to visualize those insights using Datadog and dashboards. The challenges they had was that they had multiple microservices deployed in Kubernetes across multiple instances. So they needed something to bring that together. Well, Rackspace Technology partnered with Datadog, and we were able to bring all those different sources of truth together into a single platform. And this gained the kind of visibility into their microservices and infrastructure that they needed to improve accuracy and consistency in their environments. Now, let's talk about exactly what Datadog can do and its insights with George Morgan from Datadog, and over to you.
Thank you, Ed. So now let's take a moment and look at the Datadog platform itself. And basically what you see in front of you is what's called a Datadog screen board. Now, it's, as you can see, it's providing a lot of different data points, a lot of different metrics. And just for the purposes of this demo, what we're doing is we're actually monitoring what's called a Shoppist website, which is an e-commerce website that we've stood up that is supposed to be mimicking furniture sales. So as you can see here at the top of the screen, we have a lot of different metrics and information that is going to be very useful for key decision makers, technical leads, C-level executives. Anybody who really wants to get insights into how the actual website is performing, both from a metrics perspective as well as from a financial perspective, as you can see here. Now, if you continue to scroll down on the screen board, we see various other different data points that are more of interest to a lot of individuals that, in this case, for instance, APM, would be application performance monitoring. So individuals like developers who want to get an idea of how the actual website services are performing. So information around database requests, web request hits versus error count. All this information is going to give you that top level view of how that website's performing. And as you continue to scroll down, you have additional metrics that are being pulled. So infrastructure metrics being one of them, logs being another, information that is going to be very important for operations engineers in terms of being able to get an idea of how the underlying hosts are performing that are powering that website, as well as leveraging our Watchdog AI ML capabilities to identify trends and anomalies to determine whether or not a situation or a dip or a peak in a particular metric is considered normal behavior. As well as logs, so being able to see all the different logs that are coming in after you've set up your different log sources within Datadog. That's going to give you that information on what are some of the things that are happening in that environment from a logging perspective. And as you can see, just within this one screen board, if you can imagine different individuals like operations engineers, developers, logging specialists, being able to see this same level, same information all within their fingertips, this is going to provide that initial introspection and troubleshooting that is going to allow those individuals to shave minutes off those mean time to detection and mean time to recover situations. So now that we've looked at the screen board, why don't we pivot a little and start digging into what we call at Datadog the 3 pillars of observability. So that includes monitoring your infrastructure, your applications, and your logs. But even before we do that, why don't we switch over and just have a quick look at integrations. So integrations are going to be those components within the Datadog platform that you're going to deploy that it's going to be able to capture the various metrics of your different technologies that your environment is using. So if it's SSH, if it's a database, if it's a public cloud instances, you're going to be able to leverage our out-of-the-box integrations, which are not only going to pull those different metrics, but also going to give you out-of-the-box capabilities like out-of-the-box dashboards that you can instantly, once the integration is installed, instantly see your metrics all within the same screen, as well as being able to leverage out-of-the-box monitors, so being able to instantly get alerted when some of those metrics are performing outside of the realms of acceptable performance. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover here in terms of integrations. So now let's shift and let's start talking about those 3 pillars. So let's start with infrastructure. So as you can see here, you've got a picture of all the different, in this case, containers that are powering that Shopist website. So as you can see here, everything is broken down into different categories. And through the use of tagging that we use extensively at Datadog, tagging is going to allow you to infuse that metadata into your environment so that within the Datadog platform, you're able to drill down, correlate, and find that information that you need all that much more quickly. So as you can see here, we've got the different containers separated according to availability zone, teams, and short image. And each one of these boxes constitutes a single container that's running in the environment. And obviously, some of them are different colors. That basically means that we are pulling a specific metric. In this case, it's IO writes. And that's going to give you an indication of how those individual containers are performing. And as you can see here, there's a key that gives you an understanding of the darker, the more utilization or more resources are being consumed. So as you can see, just from within this one screen, an operations engineer can get a really quick and really detailed view of how the underlying infrastructure is performing. So that's infrastructure. Now let's pivot just a little bit and talk about APM, or application performance monitoring. So as you can see here, we've got what's called our service catalog. So our service catalog is going to have all these different areas of information and all the different services that are currently running in that Shopify website. So each one of these constitutes its own specific service. And as I'm highlighting each one of these services, it's basically highlighting all the different upstream and downstream dependencies associated with the actual website. So say, for instance, I wanted to just isolate the web store. So if I click on inspect, now it's basically removing all the other noise and it's just giving me all the upstream and downstream services or dependencies associated with the web store. And all of these are different colors, denotes if there are any latency or errors. So that can give you really good information very quickly as to how that actual service is performing. So now if we go back to the service overview, one thing I also wanted to mention is as you are instrumenting and your application with Datadog, and as Datadog is able to identify all those services, this picture is going to dynamically update itself. So if you can think of a really good use case for that, say for instance, you have new developers joining your team. Those developers need to get an understanding fairly quickly of all the services that are running in the environment, any of the dependencies associated with those services. And basically also, but because this is dynamically generated, any outside documentation activities that are needed to keep all the documentation up to date, that's pretty much removed because at this point, you're just leveraging this dynamic picture. So now let's take a closer look at one of the services. So let's look at the web store. So you can always click on it and look at the service information. And this slide bar is going to give you kind of just that initial overview of the web store, any of the monitors that are associated with them, as well as some of the key metrics. Now, if I wanted to go even deeper, I can click on the service page. And that's going to give me all of the different usage metrics, errors, all the different traces that are associated with the web store. And as you can see here, you've got different requests and errors, you've got latency, you've got SLOs. And now what we're going to do is once this is finished loading, we'll be able to see additional information on how all those different components are performing. So as you can see here, you've got error requests and errors, latency. If you wanted to see anything with regarding to traces, you can click on the traces tab. And then at that point, what you can see is all the different traces that are associated with the web store. So a trace is basically any request that's being made of that service from either another service or a user. So say, for instance, let's go ahead and drill down into one of these traces and start to identify what are some of the concerns or what are some of the issues associated with it. So if I click on error on here on the left hand of the screen, this screen is going to automatically update itself and give me all of the different traces that have reported an error. And this is all the errors that have been reported within the last hour. So say, for instance, I wanted to click on any one of these. So the shopping cart controller. And here's where the real power of being able to see various different metrics across different pillars really comes into play. So as you can see here, we have what's called a flame graph. And a flame graph is going to give you all the information associated with that trace of all the units of work or all the resources that were invoked as part of that individual trace. And as you can see, as I'm highlighting each one, it's updating the information at the bottom of the screen. So say, for instance, I wanted to just focus on this rack request error. And by the way, an exclamation mark denotes the error. So I click on that. Here's where I can actually now see all the errors that are associated with that trace or that resource in the trace. I can see how the infrastructure was performing during that time. I can see all the logs that were being pulled during that time as well as network processes, SSL queries, SQL series. And basically, as you can see, you have all this information all within that one screen. So being able to see all this information, have different individuals from different disciplines, be able to see this information really becomes really key to basically addressing those issues all that much more quickly. You're not context switching. You're not going to other platforms to see how the logs were performing during that period of time. Everything is at your fingertips right on this screen. So this is application performance monitoring. Why don't we just switch over now to the third pillar, which is logs. So logs are basically, our log explorer screen is going to give you all the information, all the logs that are actually being pulled by Datadog once you've established your log sources, whether it's log sources on your hyperscalers environment, your hosts. Once you've established those log sources and you've established things like your indexing, your retention periods, this is going to update this log explorer screen. Now, what's unique about our logging capabilities is that you don't need to learn a complex querying language to use the platform. Everything is done through this, what we call the faceted search on the left-hand side of the screen. So if I wanted to see all the errors that are coming in, I can click on that particular facet. And if I wanted to see all the errors associated with, say, for instance, the ad server, I can click on that. And then once we see all the errors coming in, again, it's a lot of errors to sift through. So what you can do is you can actually use the patterns option and then just see how often specific errors are appearing. So this makes it all that much more easier to consume. So as you can see here, 262,000 instances of this one error associated with the ads server basically were problematic. And what you can do is you can click on it and see all those instances of when that error was reported. So as you can see, just from this one screen, you can identify really quickly what the error is and really drill down and then come up with a plan of attack to address. Okay, so that's logs. So now let's finish up with the last part of this presentation, which is your monitors. So your monitors are going to be that capability within Datadog that you're going to be able to set on those metrics to alert you or your team either via email, through PagerDuty, through Slack. You know, looking at metrics is interesting, but obviously after hours, you can't keep track of your metrics all day long. So that's when you want to set those monitors. And basically a monitor is provides capabilities around metrics, around anomalies, hosts, APM. So this is going to give you that capability to identify the type of monitor that you want, establish the warning and alert threshold that you need, and then at that point, you have the confidence in knowing that those individuals that need to get alerted are going to be alerted through the monitor. And now at this time, with the demonstration complete, I'm going to pass it back to Rick.
Thank you, George, for that demo. So you've just seen Datadog's capabilities, and it's exciting to see, you know, just the out of the box functionality, as well as the insights that become available via dashboards. You know, Ed made a point earlier that, you know, as a managed service provider, we're tasked with monitoring customers at scale and also coupling that with support service for that alerting. And so I think that provides an opportunity, again, to observe the wide range of monitoring requirements from customers, as well as seeing some of the challenges that traditional monitoring starts to present. So I'd like to talk through some of those challenges that we currently see within, you know, traditional monitoring that ultimately lead us to having a conversation about observability. And then we'll see how you can overcome these challenges by leveraging Rackspace and our partnership with Datadog. So traditionally, you know, you have a monitoring configuration that consists of, you know, different monitors across the components of your backend stack, you know, OS and DB and storage. And, you know, all these monitors have alerts that when they're triggered, they'll go to support teams that are responsible for those components, whether that's a single support team for maybe smaller businesses or multiple support teams, you know, for larger ones. And as these alerts come out for these components, right, if there's no correlation tooling in place or even layer in front of them, right, to see how the alerts connect, it can start to create a lack of visibility into your stack, you know, and for your support teams. And not being able to holistically see how your alerts connect or how they serve a front-end application, it can mean a few things that tend to have a cascading effect. So support teams, right, they can be left in the dark, you know, reacting to individual alerts without context to maybe, you know, a larger issue, right? The alert comes in, they take care of it, you know, they move on to the next one. And without, available alert history, support teams could be reacting to a recurring problem without addressing a real root cause. And so aside from some of the inefficiencies you have in troubleshooting, there's also maintaining the standards and governance around the monitoring systems or configurations, right? So if you think for your monitoring systems in place, every so often, management packs get updated or the system in general gets an update, and certain monitors may get deprecated in lieu of new ones. And so in general, just having to, again, have some governance in place for that also tends to create, some kind of overhead. So overall, incident management becomes difficult, and to some degree, right, your operational support tends to become disconnected. And this creates, prolonged mean time to repair. And that's a big inefficiency, right, and a cost driver. And so your resources are spending cycles on solving issues instead of adding value back to your customer, or your business applications. Adding to that, right, architectures have absolutely become more complex and, hybrid. And so this requires an evolved approach to maintain operational visibility across your support teams. And I think that's where the observability conversation really begins. So how does Datadog and Rackspace help you overcome these challenges, right, and reduce costs? Well, as George was able to show, using Datadog instantly begins to add value by providing, more insights, not only for your monitors, but also insights into how your technology stack is connected. And that's really how you start to overcome the challenges that I've just mentioned here, is being able to see how your stack's connected, how your services interact with each other across that stack, really starts to create this health picture of your entire environment. You can essentially you start to shift from a reactive support model to a more proactive and even data-driven model that is able to return cost savings in the form of reduced mean time of repair and value, right, to your end user applications. And so that's what we've seen from an MSP perspective in regards to evolving monitoring for our customers. And we believe Datadog is the right tool. And as Ed mentioned, we're introducing Datadog into our own product offerings, right? And that's the great thing about I think using Rackspace when you start that shift, or when you start to talk about that shift, is our partnership with Datadog helps us to develop the expertise that's necessary to implement whatever Datadog solution fits your needs, right? So you're able to offload anything from initial discovery and implementation, all the way to even tacking on managed support services for your environment after implementation. And you can see on the slide, right, some of the things that you're able to shift over when you use Rackspace to implement Datadog. But I also wanted to touch a little bit, on the automation piece too. So adding automation as part of your observability workflows continues to drive down costs by even further reducing, mean time to repair, or even the amount of resources, right, needed to solve an issue. And probably goes without saying, right? But I mean, now there is nothing that doesn't include, automation, right? It's just an essential piece of whatever, technology stack that you're using. And so with Rackspace and Datadog, right, this can be automation within Datadog or automated workflows with Rackspace's tools for your hosted environments. Rackspace can use the webhooks that are available natively, right, via Datadog to your Cloud's API for automation execution, or we can do it via Rackspace's automation engine that we use to ingest monitor alerts. We can enrich the alert, where necessary, and then we can go and execute, with templated or even custom built automation workflows to remediate the alert triggered, right? Again, over the years as an MSP, our automation engineers have curated, libraries of automation templates for many different, monitoring scenarios. But again, we can also custom build, automation that's necessary. So it's a very simple scenario, right, that I'll put forth right now. But imagine a release that creates an unintended bug, right? Because that never happens. And every so often requires the same actions to rectify the application, right? Well, with Rackspace and Datadog, you're going to be able to, one, surface that repetitive issue, even if it's, somewhat intermittent. And then you can have automation built for it in the interim while your team, works to address the bug. And some of the other things that, we can help with include creating runbooks for incidents based on resolution and the data insights from Datadog leading up to the incident. And we can also help with proactive reviews of your Datadog configuration, right? And these can be used to continually optimize your monitoring, but also surface application improvements, again, via the Datadog insights. And so that's really the benefit of using Rackspace to help implement your solution, right? You get expertise at multiple layers from, Datadog to creating automation. And again, you can even layer in support that can take over any manual remediation that's left to deal with. Right? Essentially, you can completely offload the responsibility of your environment's health. And I think so as an MSP provider, right, we understandably, it may be hard for businesses to completely shift their models from monitoring to observability overnight. And so that's why, Rackspace's services with Datadog, we can be used to meet you wherever you might be in that journey, right? And I think, again, right even at the beginning of the webinar, when we had that poll up of asking around where you think you might be, we can meet you wherever you're at by evolving your current monitoring configuration in a way that prepares you for moving into, an observability model. And so overall, when you implement Datadog using Rackspace, you lower the entry barriers of observability for your technology stacks while gaining valuable insights, reducing your mean time to repair, and creating operational resiliency. And offloading these activities allows your development teams, right, to focus on what really matters, right, which is improving your business applications with speed and efficiency while not worrying about your application's availability. So I've talked about the challenges, right, that we've seen from an MSP perspective, and how we're partnering with Datadog to help customers, overcome them. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ed now to kind of talk through, some of the offers, and then go ahead and wrap us up. Ed?
Thanks, Rick. And thanks everybody for your time. As we kind of wrap up here, what I want to do is I want to take us through the Rackspace specific market perspective. So you've heard from Rick, you've seen George with the demo, you've heard about my kind of preamble to all of this, but now let's talk about what Rackspace is doing in this space and how you might be able to use this, whether you need a partner like Rackspace or not. Obviously, I'm biased there, but there are lessons to be learned as to how we're approaching the market. And so I just want to take you through that very quickly, and then we'll wrap this up. So there are really kind of two entry points that we might come in on a customer's observability journey. If you think of it less as like, I want to migrate and modernize as a journey, but in general, like my journey to become a better, to have better insights into my environments, that observability journey, you could either have an environment stood up or you could not. And if you have an environment already stood up with observability tools in place, then you might want to know if that's like a healthy implementation. Like, does it make sense the way I've set things up? Am I monitoring the right things? Am I doing the right things to achieve the kind of business outcomes that I thought I would be getting out of it? Am I looking at this, again, now moving on to the next thing, from a cost perspective? Have I been achieving the kind of cost efficiencies and return on investment that we all expect whenever we implement any tool? Are we able to even communicate that? Like a lot of times when you think about observability and the value it brings, you're talking about measuring things like mean time to recovery. And that's a hard thing if you're not looking for it to use as a justification for that business case. A lot of times people just want to know, like, how much did I save? Well, I spent this much on Datadog and I didn't save anything because my balance sheet doesn't say so. But that's not true, right? Like the reality is that when you saved your team dozens of hours troubleshooting that P1 last week, you saved your company a ton of money as that team was able to quickly move on to other projects and potentially not force you into scaling that team even further. And so that things like cost optimization offerings come into play. And these are things, whether, again, Rackspace is the company that does it or you're doing it yourself, you should be thinking of, is my implementation healthy? Is it cost effective? Well, the next entry point is, imagine I don't have anything in place. How do I get this installed? How do I implement this? And here's the interesting thing. Datadog is actually quite easy to implement. It's not hard at all. And I'm going to say this, and I hope the Rackspace security team doesn't drag me out before I finish the sentence, but you may not need us to actually install the agent because it is that simple. But where you might need us is around asset discovery, understanding what are the things that you need to actually be looking at when you're installing these things. How should you set up the integrations? Are you monitoring the right metrics when you need? Is the out-of-the-box dashboard that George talked about, is that what you need? Or do you potentially need something more custom? And that's where an MSP and a professional service offering like Rackspace can kind of come in and help you understand and navigate that. Then we kind of move into an area that once you've done the health checks and the cost optimization, you've either implemented, et cetera, now we're all on even playing fields, right? Now everybody's in Datadog, they're using it, they understand the value it brings. Well, like let's extract operational value out of it as well. And one of the key ways you do that is by tagging things, right? Like you want to take actions intelligently. You don't want to just say like, treat all things the same equally, end of story. You want to say, here is this group of stuff. We're going to tag it this way. And here's another group of stuff. And you're going to treat these things one way and you're going to treat these another, which kind of leads us into the automation piece. It's not to say that knowing about a problem isn't valuable. It is valuable, but knowing about a problem is much more valuable when you do something about it, when you automate that thing away, when you're able to say, I've got this chain of ownership from my tooling that's amazing, that goes into now some automated portfolio or some pre-designed run books that bring additional efficiency. And so the next thing we do when we're helping our customers is we kind of understand what are the most common alerts, what are the common things that they're experiencing, and we take those things and we write run books, we write automation that says when this thing happens, restart this machine in this order, do it in this way. And that was what Rick was kind of hinting at earlier. And then the kind of final evolution of the Rackspace perspective on this comes in the form of what we call Datadog as a service. And we've got a Rackspace UI UX experience, and we call that Fabric internally. And what we're doing with Datadog is we're kind of baking it in that. And we're creating a fully managed Datadog experience. So when somebody wants to set up new integrations, when they want to deploy new dashboards, we'll have libraries of dashboards that they can deploy from through the UI, and we'll fully manage that for them through our MSP tenant. And again, this is something that you can frame without the context of Rackspace, and you could just take this lesson yourself. Because ultimately, if you decide you don't need Rackspace, you need to become a Datadog as a service provider for your own company, right? You need to be able to do all the things. If somebody needs a metric added, you need to be the one who does it. If somebody needs an agent installed, you need to be the one who does it. And so these kinds of considerations are the kinds of things that when we look out at the market for Datadog, we see opportunity, we see challenges, and we see a way that we can help the conversation move forward. And with all of that said, we want to bring it back to where we started the conversation, which is fundamentally that these services are simply just services. Datadog is simply just a tool. They all need to be placed strategically on some journey that your organization wants to go on, whether that's migrate and modernize, AI/ML, or any number of journeys. And so let's take a look now at the results of that poll and start taking some questions and having conversations around those specific journeys and how Rackspace Technology and Datadog can help you along the way.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Let's get into some of your results because we want to hear from all of you. Man, what an interesting conversation. I'm so glad that we got to dig into so many wonderful ideas and topics already. And we've got lots more coming because boy, do we have a lot of questions coming in. All of you out there, brownies for everybody. If I could send you all a brownie right now, I would because great questions coming in. But let's start with digging into these poll results a little bit. So Ed, we've got the results up on the screen here. This was the question that we asked everyone at the start before we jumped into our conversation. And we were asking about the organizational journey. What was it in the audience's organizational journey that made them want to attend this webinar today, made them want to be a part of this conversation? From what you're seeing here, Ed, is this kind of what you expected to see? Where does this fit?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, there are a couple surprises here. But for the most part, I think we did expect to see this. I'm going to cheat a little bit and combine two categories because when you think about security and compliance, you could think about things like, what's the bread and butter stuff that we need to do, compliance reporting for various regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, such as tracking user access or data handling, other bread and butter things like tracking policies regarding data encryption. Or we can, and this is where the cheating comes in, combine security with DevOps transformation and talk about how these two things, when they become a DevSecOps model, can be used to integrate those security practices into the DevOps lifecycle, doing things like analyzing data from various sources, logs, metrics, traces, et cetera, to detect threats and provide real-time alerting. So not a big surprise, especially once you combine that security was at the top. And of course, with all the buzz around AI and kind of what it can do for business outcomes, I think those were to be expected. I think from a migrate and modernize apps and data journey, I expected that to maybe be a little higher, if I'm being honest, but it is interesting, and maybe that just means we need to communicate the value that a tool like Datadog can present when doing that kind of work and keeping the migration running smoothly and downtime limited.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty exciting place to start with, of course, and Ben saying that he hadn't responded fast enough. If anyone else has thoughts that you want to add in on this, if you have something that you want to send to our speakers to add in your own opinion or your own reason for being here today, or question that, please feel free to do that. We're watching these come in live and in real time. So send us your live thoughts. But while you're all doing that, I'm going to actually move through a few other questions that we have for all of you, and I'm just going to kind of flip through them as we get into some Q&A here. So keep an eye on the screen, because there's just going to be some questions for you that are sort of follow-ups and takeaways to the conversation that we've had here today. And as we're going, let's jump into some questions. Are we ready for that? Ed, Rick, George, you ready to dive into some Q&A here?
Yeah, where do we begin?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Let's do it. All right. Well, we have a lot of questions coming in. And as I said, some really interesting kind of topics to explore a little bit. But I'm wondering, just as sort of a base question, because Greg asked a very big question. And I think maybe this is a good place to start, because what Greg is wondering is if you could dive in a little bit further to how the integration of Datadog and Rackspace is going to enhance the operational intelligence with real-time monitoring. Now, I think you guys hit this pretty, obviously that was a pretty big conversation that we were having. But Greg's diving in a little bit more towards anomaly detection, root cause analysis, and wondering about scalability and reliability for business. So if I can ask you guys to start with that very large question, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit from there.
Sure. I'll get started and kind of lay the table, which is to say that when you come from your organization to a partner like Rackspace, I think, this is the product guy speaking, you're looking for a partner who can help you in a couple key areas. One key area is understanding exactly what it is that is out there and how those things relate. So you have all of these different resources. I'll give you an example. You may be such a large company that you have an IT team that's separate from the application owners, and their ability to kind of communicate and see the relationships between their devices and the downstream devices might be limited. And so you need a partner like Rackspace to help map those things out, create the relationships, tag things accordingly. Another area that you might need a company like Rackspace is really just to take the next step. I talked a lot about, what do you do with an alert when you have it? Well, you automate it away, or you create runbooks. And so the question fundamentally becomes, do you do those things, or does Rackspace? With that said, the kinds of integrations that I'm talking about are within Rackspace managed infrastructure. So we have a Rackspace managed, let's say, server. In this case, it's enrolled in Datadog, and by using this integration, we're able to not only help manage that server, but several resources across both public and private clouds, and perform things like incident response, service requests, and all of these things much more quickly than we would if these things were kind of separate, like if they weren't our incident response and monitoring and observability tool. And so those kinds of tight integrations is what I'm talking about, is feeding those alerts into our event logs and then responding to them from an incident response perspective. We also provide additional services on top of that to do the advanced tagging. But all of that to say is that we use that in incident response for real-time monitoring, anomaly detection, and getting ahead of problems for our customers, as well as like when we can't avoid a problem, using them for root cause analysis. And the reason that that's important is because, again, we have an understanding of the infrastructure, we know how it all relates, and we're able to quickly put those pieces together.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add on to that before I move on to our next question?
Yeah, I mean, I would also just add, right, like as you continue to use, Datadog with Rackspace, and like I was saying, we continue to solve these problems for you. We're able to start gaining insights, right? To some degree, we're able to start learning more about your environment, right? As we get more and more data coming in, and as we start to get into conversations about, AI ops, you start to use a lot of that and becomes, again, like I was talking about earlier, a data-driven model that allows us, again, to learn about your environment and then proactively start to create, either runbooks or even further automations to help on the reliability for your business piece.
Awesome. All right. Well, I have moved the poll along, so there's a new question up on the screen for all of you. I see the answers coming in, so I appreciate all of you playing along with us on this Choose Your Own Adventure section as we go through some polls and some questions. Again, great questions coming in, so I'm sorting through because we're going to run out of time here. But I'm wondering if you could give us an idea if there's any obstacles that have come up that you've seen from a cultural perspective. And this is a really interesting question. Is there anything that you've seen that stopped teams from really being able to use the benefits of observability within their organization from that sort of human or cultural perspective? And how have you seen teams overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I can go ahead and start with that, Jess and Ed, or George, if you want to chime in as well. But I think so ultimately, right, when you start maybe that transition where you're probably starting from, like I was talking about earlier, was this place of reacting to alerts as they come in, right? And so what you're not used to is probably getting a bigger picture of how, or context behind the alerts as they come in, right? And how the environment is supposed to operate when it is healthy. And so I think one of the barriers is having to get past that and being able to recognize that a tool like Datadog can be used to tell you what that healthy picture looks like, can give you lots of context, and being able to change your mindset to effectively use that context very efficiently to help you solve a problem faster when it arises. And then additionally, on top of that, right, getting to a point where you're starting to use that data to be a little more proactive in order to see a problem before it actually becomes a problem.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to what Rick said there, that we've got a really, and the topic of AI ML has come up already, but we've got a really robust AI ML capability within the platform itself, within Datadog, that is going to help you identify kind of like those trends, those, what is considered, normal operation for any given metric, and also be able to provide forecasting to give you a picture of, okay, this is where this metric or where this trace is trending. It sort of gives you that proactive, notification that, you may want to have a look at the metric in particular. And then, we've got, as well as that, we've got the ability to use things like our, we do regular partner deployment reviews where you can get an idea from some of the Datadog experts to give you an idea of, when you're creating your monitors, what are some good practices to consider. A lot of those things we've been working hand in hand with some of our Rackspace counterparts to be able to give those types of details, just to make sure that you've got not only useful monitors that are not generating multiple alerts that might encourage others to mute them, because obviously you don't really want to end up in a situation where you're muting alerts because they're being too noisy. But in general, we've got a lot of tools at your disposal where you can not only leverage a lot of those AI capabilities, but also some of those best practices to make sure that you've got a good handle on your metrics and your data as they're coming in.
I actually really love that question. I just want to add to that. So fear of transparency. So the question again, just to recap, because I know we've all chimed in here, but like, what are the cultural barriers that stop a company from adopting this? I think it's important to talk about what's scary about observability. It's this kind of idea that I'm afraid of transparency. Like, what might you see when everything is illuminated? You might start to see things like communication barriers. Wow, these teams really aren't communicating effectively, even though they're intricately connected from an architectural standpoint. You may find out that there's inadequate leadership support. You may find out that things you're working on are misaligned and from the business goals. And that's all scary, right? That's a very, very scary thing. And so what it can point out about an organization is that you've got siloed departments, that there's a general culture that's resistant to change, that there's a lack of ownership and accountability, or that there's major skill gaps and reliance on legacy systems, data overload concerns. All of these things are cultural barriers to adopting this. So my point would be is it's incumbent on us to talk about what the answers are. And I think when you talk about data overload, misalignment to business goals, it's really important when you're looking at an observability tool, you're looking at it as an ally to get ahead of these problems. And instead of like waiting for somebody to discover the problem, use that to get ahead of it and make a name for yourself in your organization, and to help find cost savings through the use of this tool, to help realign things that are misaligned from business goals, to highlight gaps to your leadership, or even help improve those communication barriers. So it's, again, it's that mind, it's that pivot in your mind about being afraid of the observability tool on one hand versus using it as an ally to make headwinds in your company and make progress in your company.
I think that's so cool that we got to dive into that a little bit today, because of course, change management always comes up when we're dealing with new tools, and paying attention to the psychology of what we're doing. You can have the best tools in the world, but if your organization isn't able to or willing to interact with them in a way that's effective, then are you actually going to get what you need to out of those tools? So that's a really cool point to kind of get into and explore a little bit today. We are getting close to the end of time. I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to try for 2 more questions, guys. I'm being a bit of a rebel. I'm pushing the time today. My first question for you all is, we had a question come in about what's coming, that future roadmap. Is there anything that you are all excited to see with this integration and this partnership that the audience should have in mind today? What's coming for Rackspace and Datadog?
Yeah, as the product guy for Rackspace, I'll take a first crack at that, right? So, ultimately what we're doing with the Datadog as a service software that we called out is integrating it directly into our monitoring and observability tooling, i.e. customers will be able to go into the Rackspace marketplace once they log in and purchase not only Datadog, but incident response for whatever add-on they add. So if they go in there and they add on a DBA services monitoring offer, then we will have our DBAs respond to incidents. And you could take that logic through Kubernetes, you can take that logic for basic infrastructure monitoring, application monitoring, performance monitoring. I think that's the real value between the Rackspace integration with Datadog right now. Long term, what we're looking for is creating libraries, as I talked about earlier, libraries of dashboards that customers can kind of deploy quickly within the UI. Today, we do have an offer where we allow our teams to kind of build those custom for our customers. But when we hit on one of those dashboards, we'd like to just kind of save it and say, well, here's how we deploy it, and here's how you can get access to it. So those are things of the long term.
All right. Well, my last sneaky question for you guys before we start to wrap things up is, what do you think makes this partnership the most unique? What is the Datadog Rackspace offering that the audience should be aware of that makes you stand out?
Not to put
I
can on the spot, but I was going to say I want to hear from Datadog actually.
Go George, go.
Why are we
putting
great?
me on the spot? No worries. So we are engaged with Rackspace on multiple different initiatives, whether it's go-to-market type initiatives. We're also working hand in hand in influencing a Datadog Rackspace integration together around the OpenStack IaaS capability. A while back, Rackspace informed us that we really needed to do a little bit of better job on one of our integrations, because a lot of customers at Rackspace leverage OpenStack, and what we currently had out there wasn't up to snuff. So we've been working hand in hand with our internal product teams as well as the Rackspace teams to make sure that we have a solution for an integration that checks all the boxes and meets all the demands. We are, engaged in multiple different efforts, across, some of the private cloud team efforts, public team as well, DB Ops. So I think what's great about, at least from my perspective and from what I've seen, is just a willingness to collaborate across multiple different product groups, and just continuing to have that level of partnership where we're basically, we're working hand in hand. We're on each other's Slack channels, and we're basically, for lack of a better word, connected at the hip, very much so. So I think I've been part of this partnership for the last year and a half. I'm really excited where it is now and where it's going, and it's just more to come. That's all I can say.
Well, that's a perfect place to leave it, I think, with a exciting look forward. I do want to ask, Ed, I'm going to kick this over to you. We've got a question up on the screen here wondering if folks are interested in kind of getting to connect with Rackspace one-on-one and continue this conversation further. Obviously, I think that's a great next step is to really, reach out and get that opportunity to have a customized conversation. And that is a great follow-up. Is there anything else or anything you want to add about that or next steps or kind of how to get started for the audience out there?
Yeah, in our handouts, there should be a link to our landing page for Datadog, and there you can have submit a general query that'll get processed by a solution architect. But to be honest, I'm also happy to hop on a call, as I know Rick would be as well. And so if you want, my email is edward.kerr@rackspace.com. You can just email me directly, and I would love to kind of sit down and chat with you guys. Part of the value and from a product perspective is hearing directly from customers, so I cherish these moments and would love to hear from you.
I love that. So there you go. Reach out to our wonderful speakers here with us today. Click on that poll that you see up on the screen to get that meeting booked. And definitely be sure that you're clicking on all the handouts. There's some great resources there. There's a data sheet you guys have on Rackspace services for Datadog. There's an opportunity to sign up for that free trial. You can start exploring the web page. There's use cases there, some detailed ROI opportunities. If you're making this case to other members of your team, that's a great place to start. So lots of great ways to follow up and dig in and get more info. I have kept you guys right up until time. Ed, George, and Rick, I want to thank you all so much for being here for the incredible presentation, a demo, polls, a Q&A. We've done it all today. Thank you guys so much for such a wonderful webinar.
Great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jess. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right. And for all of you out there, again, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who asked questions. Now, I know that we did not get to all the questions. I can see the questions still coming in, and they are rolling in hot and heavy, and we are just not going to get to all of them. So I do want to remind you all that the Rackspace team obviously has been answering as many of these as they can on live chat. And we will follow up over email with anyone that we did not get to. So if you asked a question and it did not get answered in live chat or it did not get answered in our live Q&A today, you will still get a response back over email. So if you have that last burning question, make sure you get it in. And again, make sure you're clicking on that poll because that's another great way to get the follow-up that you want. Rackspace will reach out. They can book that appointment with you, and then you can get all the questions answered right there in real time, and that's awesome too. So lots of ways to follow up. But again, a big thank you to all of you for spending some time with us here today. And that brings us around to the end of our webinar. I can't believe how fast this all went by today. It has been such a whirlwind and so much information. My brain is absolutely buzzing. Now, before we leave, you all know what that means. It is time for a prize giveaway. So we do have a $250 Amazon gift card, and that is going to Alex Leung from California. Alex Leung from California. Congratulations to you, Alex. We will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up, and stay tuned for that $50 Amazon gift card going to the best question asked, because again, we will be reviewing all the questions asked, all the many questions asked, and we will follow up with our winner afterwards. All right, my friends. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank Rackspace and Datadog for making this webinar possible. A giant thank you again to Ed, to Rick, to George for taking time out of their day to lead us on such an engaging and interesting conversation. I love when we get to kind of have a little bit more of these round tables, when we get to hear from several experts at once. And best of all, getting into at the end, we're talking about this with the Q&A, hearing from all of you and what's near and dear to your heart, and hearing a little bit more about what these speakers are excited about. I find that a really fascinating opportunity, because they're the ones that are eat, sleeping, and breathing this every day. And if they're excited, then you should be excited too. So I think today we had a lot of reasons to smile, a lot of reasons to be excited, and a lot of reasons to want to learn more about Rackspace and Datadog. And remember that these webinars are just the kicking off point. This is the starting point to a bigger, grander conversation that you all get to go have in your day as you're thinking about observability and how different solutions might work for your team and whether this is a good solution for you. So this is the starting point, and the next step are those handouts, those appointments, those meetings, and continuing the conversation on from here. So I hope that you're all pumped up and ready to rock and ready to continue those conversations. I know that I've got a lot that I'll be mulling over this afternoon. So once again, a big thank you to all of you for spending some of your days here with us. I hope that I get to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.